Let's talk about something that sounds, well, completely backwards. What if I told you that to get better grades, you might actually need to study less? Yep, that's right. We're going to dive into the science of how to study smart, not just hard.
So let me ask you something. How long can you really, and I mean really, study before your brain just checks out? Sure, you hear stories about medical residents pulling all-nighters, cramming for 6 hours straight, but for most of us, especially if you're a freshman, the real number is a lot shorter than you think.
To see what happens when you push way past that limit, let me tell you about a student named Jeanette. She decided she needed to get serious, so she started studying for 6 hours every single night, nonstop. You'd expect her grades to shoot through the roof, right? Well, they went from a D average to her failing every single class. And Jeanette's story is a perfect example of what we call the more is less study trap. It's this idea we all have that just throwing more hours at our textbooks will fix everything. But when it comes to learning, that brute force approach doesn't just fail, it can actually backfire, big time. So what was really going on during those 6-hour study marathons? Well, for about the first 30 minutes, she was probably doing some pretty effective work. But the next 5.5 hours, that was just pain and misery. She was basically training her brain to hate learning, and she was getting almost nothing out of it. It's like trying to shovel sand against the tide. Okay, so if grinding for more and more hours is the trap, how do we get out of it? It's actually pretty simple. We have to stop fighting our brains and start working with them. And the key is understanding a little bit about the science of how we actually focus. And here it is, the magic number. According to a ton of university research, our brain's optimal focus window for learning new, tough material is only about 25 to 30 minutes. That's it. That's our peak performance zone. After that, our ability to learn effectively just drops off a cliff. And this is such a great way to see the problem. In that first half hour, you're on fire. Your study efficiency is close to 100%. But the longer you go, the more it just tanks. So for Jeanette, almost all of her effective studying was crammed into that first 30 minutes. The next 5+ hours, they produced next to nothing. So what we need is a whole new system. And this is it, the smart study cycle. You study, super focused, for 25 to 30 minutes. Then you stop. You take a 5-minute break and, this is key, you do something genuinely fun as a reward. Listen to a song, watch a funny video, whatever. Then you just repeat that cycle. And when you're all done studying for the day, you give yourself an even bigger reward. It's a simple system that keeps your brain fresh and efficient. Okay, so we figured out how to study, but now we need to talk about where you study. It turns out our brains are incredibly sensitive to cues from our environment, which means your location can be just as important as your technique. Come on, we've all done it, right? Studying in our bedroom, maybe even in bed. But think about it. What is your bedroom for? Sleep, relaxation. And what is studying for? Focus, alertness. You're sending your brain two totally opposite signals at the same time. No wonder the bed starts calling your name and your textbook starts to look like a pillow. The fix for this is honestly so simple, but it's a total game changer. You need to create a dedicated study area, a space that your brain associates with only one thing, focus and learning. This is how you train your brain to snap into study mode on command. Check this out. There was an experiment at the University of Hawaii that perfected this with something called the study lamp technique. It's simple. You get a lamp that you only use for studying. When it's time to study, you turn it on. But here's the rule. The second you feel your mind start to wander, you turn the lamp off and you walk away. You're conditioning your brain. When this lamp is on, it's time to work. And the results, were they good? Oh, yeah. Students who used this simple trick saw their grades go up by a full grade point on average. That's the difference between a B and an A, just by controlling their study space. It's incredible. All right, our next big idea tackles probably the single biggest mistake students make. It's all about the massive difference between passively recognizing something and actively knowing it. We confuse these two all the time. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? We've all seen those textbooks where half the page is glowing yellow or orange. We feel like we're studying, but if you highlight everything, you're really not highlighting anything at all. It's one of the laziest, most passive ways to learn. So let's break it down. Recognition is passive. It's that feeling you get when you reread your notes and think, oh yeah, I remember my professor talking about that. But that's just familiarity. Recollection, on the other hand, is active. That's when you can close the book, look away, and explain the concept from scratch in your own words. That's when you truly know it. So how do you know for sure if you've really learned something? Here's the ultimate test. Ask yourself this: could I teach this idea to somebody else? You have to force yourself to explain it out loud, and it doesn't matter who you're talking to. Teach it to an empty chair, teach it to your dog. That act of explaining forces active recollection, and that's the gold standard of learning. Okay, I know what some of you are thinking. This is great for big concepts, but what about my class where I just have to memorize a bunch of facts? Fair enough. For that, we need a different set of tools, because trying to brute force facts into your head is a nightmare. The trick here is to use mnemonics, which is just a fancy word for creating weird interacting images in your head. So instead of just repeating facts, you create a visual hook. For example, to remember there are 4 calories in a gram of carbohydrate, picture a car. How many wheels does it have? 4. Boom. For protein, think of a pro athlete who also drives a car with 4 wheels. And to remember there are 9 calories in a gram of fat, picture a big fat cat with 9 lives. The weirder the image, the better it sticks. And of course, we can't forget the fundamentals that make all of this work. First, sleep. It's not optional. Getting a full 8 hours is when your brain actually takes what you learned and files it away into long-term memory. Also, right after class, take just 5 minutes to review and add to your notes. And a huge one, about 80% of your study time should be spent reciting info out loud, not just passively reading it over and over. All right, we have covered a ton of really powerful strategies. But here's the thing. Just knowing this stuff is useless unless you actually put it into practice. So, let's talk about the most important part, your first step. I want to leave you with this idea from psychologist Marty Lobdell. He says that if information doesn't change your behavior, you haven't really learned it. It's just a piece of trivia floating around in your head. Think about that. Real learning isn't about what you know, it's about what you do differently. So, I'm going to leave you with a direct challenge. What is the one single thing from this entire explainer that you will commit to trying tonight? Just one thing. Will it be the study cycle, the study lamp, teaching a concept to your houseplant? Pick one, actually do it, and start your journey to studying less and studying smart.